Welcome to this week's Lokar Car Show. We are in the bluegrass state of Kentucky, in Bowling Green to be more exact, and we're about to share every Chevy lover's dream event with you. Welcome to the Tri-5 Nationals. "40 years. That's how long Marvin Mayer has owned his 1957 Bel Air. It was Marvin's first car that he bought when he was only 15 years young.
It's gone through a few stages in its life, but the last time we rebuilt it was in 13. My brother and I worked on it, took it off, frame off, and took our time and put her back together the way we wanted it. It's got a small block 355, pretty basic motor, but it's got an F1 Pro Charger running 8 pounds of boost. And at the flywheel, when we dynoed it, it was 617. It's got a Jim Meyer front and rear end in it, rack and pinion, tubular A-arms, narrow 9, 390 gears, Ride Tech Air Ride. It handles really well, stops really good with the bare brakes, the extreme 6-piston bare brakes. So it's a good little ride. The paint is obviously pretty custom. It's silverine, we call it, silver and green. It's based off of Toyota Lexus paint, but it's got a lot of green pearl, a little bit of black pearl, and a ton of metallic in it. And the interior is based off of the exterior. It's got some inserts from the fins and a few other things. It's got a black and jade interior, and all the trim work was done by Stainless Steel Works out of Colorado. And I like polishing, so it's pretty shiny. To be in the top 25 is an honor. There are so many great cars here that to pick 25 has got to be extremely difficult, and I'm just happy that I was chosen as one of them.
This is currently the third build of this 1955 Chevy Nomad since Ron Pfister bought it at age 16.
My buddy's a body man, so he's the real guy behind it, but I'm his helper, and I was involved in all the metal work and all the custom stuff. Well, owning a Nomad for so long, I've had a few ideas over the years, and I wanted something different, and that's why I did the tailgate the way I did, because I'd never seen it done, and I thought it'd be cool, and I think I succeeded. It's a 99 LS1, it's pretty stock, it's got 315 to the wheels, so it runs okay. I got about 150 miles on it since I've this build. I'll drive it again, but I'm showing it right now. I towed it out here from California. It was a long trip out, and I wasn't ready to drive it that far. Well, actually this car had a similar paint scheme when I painted it in 75. It was orange with a white roof, and I had the same spider webbing panels in the roof back then. But when I took pictures of it, or anybody took pictures of it, you really didn't see the roof. It didn't show up in pictures. So this time on this build, I was just going to do an orange roof with white panels. And I've told this story all weekend, I'll tell it one more time. We rolled it out of the paint booth and got it in the sun, and it looked like a circus tent with the white on the orange. It was just too bright, too in your face. So then we started toying with different ideas to tone it down and decided to do the spider webbing again. And I think the thing that really worked is he did that gold fade around the edge between the white and the orange, and it just toned it down and made it look the way it does.
We'll be right back with more amazing cars on the Lokar Car Show, presented by Original Parts Group. The Lokar Car Show, presented by Original Parts Group, is brought to you by Stage 8, the world's best locking fastener. Brothers Truck Parts, your #1 source for 1947 to 87 Chevy and GM truck restoration. Original Parts Group, world-class restoration parts, Lokar performance products. Quality, plain and simple.
Chris Saunders and I had a sit down at a SEMA event a couple years ago and hatched the idea. It was Chris's idea. He thought the time was right for it, and he wanted to be on board with Danchuck because we're the biggest in the industry, and we wanted to be on board with something as big as this, so it all worked out.
Lane Langley fell in love with this exact model car when his uncle bought one brand new. 3 years ago, he bought his own 1957 Chevy Bel Air convertible.
Well, when I was 13 years old, my family, of 6 children in the family, piled in a 1952 Buick. We lived in a suburb outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we drove to Gallup, New Mexico to visit my aunt and uncle. And my uncle had bought a brand new one of these. It happened to be the year of 1957. It was the same color, and I fell in love with that car when I was 13 years old and wanted it all my life. And it took me 57 years to get it, but I finally got this beautiful car 3 years ago and love every second of it. The body and the interior were done. It had a different engine, different suspension, different wheels and tires, so I changed all of that, but it was in this kind of, it looked very similar to this. Driving around with the top down is one of the greatest things you can do. I mean, it's a sense of freedom, and of course everyone wants to take pictures and ask you what the car is, and thumbs up. It brings smiles to people's faces in addition to mine. But it has Tahoe seats and has a Lexus console, and changed the size of the steering wheel. It had a big 18-inch steering wheel, which makes it hard to get in and out of. And now that it has power steering, it's easy to turn, so we put a smaller steering wheel in it. And so we just made it modern so that it drives down the road nice. It's much safer, has disc brakes all the way around, and stops good, goes fast but stops fast. It has an LS3 Chevrolet motor, 6-liter with a Magnuson supercharger and a comp cam. It's about 750 horsepower. So it's just not a pretty face. Well, when you get on it, it just, because it has so much horsepower and you can't put tires on it big enough, it just kind of spins the tires and jumps up and down and makes all kinds of funny things. It's pretty exciting. At 20 miles an hour, it'll break the tires loose and smoke them, and so it's a lot of fun, or really a lot of fun.
After years of Deborah driving this 1957 Chevy Cameo, the paint began to chip, and it was leading to the pickup being in a million pieces. Her husband, Doug, started a full restoration, and this is the result.
Frame is a TCI frame. The engine is a Ramcharger or Ramjet 502 Chevrolet crate motor, Tremec 4-speed or 5-speed transmission. So from one thing to another, it led that way. Now, she picked the colors for this car probably 10 years ago at least, maybe more, and stayed firm with her color choice. So we had to do the green and the tan, so that was a firm thing. And a couple of years ago at the Street Rod Nationals, we couldn't decide on wheels, and we were walking by a booth, and there they are right there, and never varied from that either. So they're US mags that had just come out at that time. So.
A friend from Florida asked Bob Thornton if he would store this 1955 Chevy in his garage. He did, but after seeing it in his garage, it took Bob only 2 months to decide to buy it.
It was in primer, but it didn't have, the chassis was no good. Of course, he took the motor out of it, and then I bought a new, an LT4 engine and a Roadster Shop chassis, and had Paul Atkins over in Huntsville, Alabama build the car for me. What I did when I took it to Paul Atkins, he actually got with a guy that came up with a rendering and sent me 2 renderings of the outside. I told him the color I wanted, red and black. He sent me a couple of renderings with red interior, black interior, a couple of different wheels, and that's how we came about with the colors.
It's time for Lokar Lowdown with Jeffrey Walls.
Today I'd like to show you our billet drive-by-wire throttle control assemblies. Each of our assemblies come pre-programmed for your Ford, GM, or Mopar application. They come in either the brushed billet aluminum you see here or in black anodized. They come with a plug-and-play harness or a fly-by-wire harness, depending on the application, that'll plug directly into your OEM computer for your EFI or crate motor. We also offer separately different pedal pads and arms to match either your other pedal pads in your car for your your brake and clutch, or any of your other Lokar accessories. All of this is made here right in the USA, machined, programmed, assembled, all of it. Check it out on our website today, lokar.com, and request one of our free catalogs.
Welcome back to the Lokar Car Show, presented by Original Parts Group. This 1957 Chevy Bel Air convertible had once caught on fire before a customer brought it in to Jason Brock to have it restored at his shop, Rock's Rod and Custom.
I actually built this for a customer. My shop's name is Rock's Rod and Custom. I'm out of Kansas City, Missouri, and he brought it to me as it was actually had been on fire. It was a burn job, so we started over with it. We collaborate on ideas. We work off of each other and sit down and decide what we're going to do, and then he pulls the trigger and I build it. It's a 572, aluminum heads, Pilborn fuel injection. It's got a 4L 80E transmission with a gear vendor, 9-inch Ford rear end, Willwood disc brakes all the way around. It's a roadster shop chassis on coilovers. That's ride height. That's where it sits all the time. Well, this is actually its first outing, so we got some more tuning to do with the processor, but it'll have about 600 horsepower at the rear wheels. I changed the grille, modified the turn signal bar, and added some little trim pieces on the quarter panels. But other than that, the body is fairly stock. You know, the firewall's been cut out and changed for the engine. Transmission tunnel's been cut out, and the rear pan's been cut out to clear the suspension with getting it sitting that low. And we wanted to keep it a traditional looking, what it could have been in a 57. So that's the 57 broquet and the centers. And made the custom console. It's got the AC controls in the center of it. And those are 64 Impala bucket seats that I narrowed 3 inches.
Dave Orlikowski bought his 1955 Chevy 210 sedan in 2011, and he finished working on it just 2 weeks prior to the Tri-5.
Bought the car and drove it home in 2011, October, and in January of 2012 started tearing it apart and just have worked on it till about 2 weeks ago. We just kind of finished it up. It's been a long, hard process. Just start at one end and just continue to go and change things as we go to make it better and better, and put an LS1 with 4L60E transmission, kept the stock rear end and modified it, narrowed it up a little bit, new axles, Positrack 370 to go along with the engine and transmission gear ratio, and have Ride-Tech shocks on it. The Willwood brakes, 13-inch Willwood brakes all the way around disc. The PRC radiator. I did a lot of the mechanical when it first started, and then when it came to the body, I took it over to Way Cool Customs in Pittsfield, Illinois, and Reed just did one heck of a job. He did all the body work basically, and did the paint and all the finish work, trimmings and stuff, and assembled the whole car. It has 1 mile on it. It's just really fresh, like 2 weeks fresh. So it's kind of out of the trailer and into the show, and so we got a few things we need to finish up when I get back home, and then we will probably start driving it a little bit. I've been a Chevrolet guy my whole life. I've really owned nothing but Chevrolets, and I've always wanted a Tri-5, and this 55 came available, and here I am today. A dream come true.
After his uncle lost interest in this 1955 Chevy two-door, Brian Smith decided to finish the restoration.
I own an auto parts store in the town I live in, and we do this as a hobby. I've got a guy that works for me. His name's Robbie Bird. He does most of the work on the car. There was another guy that did the rest of the work. His name was Tony Collins. It's got a LS7 out of a 2006 Z06 Corvette. It's got a 4L60E transmission, and it's got we changed the cam in the motor. It's got a comp cam in the engine. We just finished the car the morning we came here, and we got to drive it around our town, maybe a couple of miles, and from the best I can tell, yeah, it'll move.
Original Parts Group Restoration Tip.
Are you finishing up the restoration on your 66 or 67 GTO? Then Original Parts Group has just what you need. These beautiful zinc die-cast bezels have thick chrome plating and a mirror finish. Available in pairs, these bezels come complete with all of the necessary hardware for ease of installation. They're manufactured to original specs, and they are also manufactured exclusively for OPGI. You can find this and thousands of other parts at opgi.com.
We'll be right back with more amazing cars on the Lokar Car Show, presented by Original Parts Group. The Lokar Car Show, presented by Original Parts Group, has been brought to you by National Parts Depot. Make your dream happen. Appalachian Tourism. Virginia is for lovers. Croftgate USA, the only car care product you will ever need. Advertising Edge, the official uniform of the NHRA. Terry Cook has always been a Tri-5 fan, so he's here today to show off his 1955 Chevy, built from scratch, at home, for fun, all by himself.
I would recommend anybody doing a rendering, to start with. If you're going to try to do a real nice car, it gives you something to work with. I like the colors, we kind of knew we wanted to go with them kind of colors, but with that rendering, he gave you different colors to look at so I can know what shade of green to go. We always knew we was going to go with the charcoal. We love that urban titanium, but to match that green with that, you go shade up or down and really make it look worse. So, Path Designs, I got a hold of him. He did the rendering and helped do that, and it was I do all my own work except for the interior, and the interior is done by Oz out of Kansas. And so it gave me something to start with, every time I left the shop, I could see the picture of it there and know what I was going to end up with. So that's why it didn't take as long to build, because I didn't have to sit there and think, can I do this or that? I knew what I was going to do when I did it, and I just started making and building it. So I owe a lot to him on that.
One of the Speed Shop's customers wanted to cross one last build off his bucket list, so he brought in this 1955 Chevy Nomad.
Well, we had a really good customer, an awesome local guy. We'd done some builds for him before. He always wanted a 55 Nomad. He did pretty much every other build he wanted to do on his bucket list, and this is the one that was left. So we bought this thing out of Arizona, and project started from there. We set out to kind of break the mold a little bit. It's hard to build a Tri-5 Chevy that's a little bit different. So many great enthusiasts out there, and people have been building them for so long. So we chose our customer originally wanted a red car, so we kind of worked on them a little bit, made a bunch of renderings, put out a bunch of different material samples and paint samples, and in the end we came up with this color combination. So I wanted a really luxurious interior, and we worked with Relicate leather, and we looked at a lot of, we had like some speedboats, some old Italian speedboats we were looking at. We had some cigar lounges. We want to create a really cool environment in the interior of the car. I think we hit it off. So
imagine driving this down my small town of 7,000 people. And I go, can you just imagine driving that down the main street of town? People would look at it, and I'm going to do that, man. Look at it. Just can't believe it. Fell in love with it when I saw it in the concept of it. Fell in love with it again at the Sloan Center, and now I own the car. I can't believe it. Can't believe it.
I tell you what, when we started this event in 2015, we had good hopes, but no idea that it would grow to this size. We had 2,717 cars in the show, all 55 through 57 Chevys. And I think the thing that makes this event so special is exclusion. It's not the inclusion of having one of these cars, it's the exclusion of no other cars are allowed to come. And it's the recipe, that and the giveaway car. And we couldn't have had a better winner this year. It was fantastic. The giveaway car program definitely draws them in, and come back next year in 2018. We've got a very special car planned for next year, and you know, if you haven't been to this event, you can't in words describe it. It's fantastic. I hope you come out next year in 2018.
Each week, Croftgate USA Car Care Products picks the best of show from the Lokar Car Show. This week's Best of Show award goes to Matt Martinez and his beautiful 1955 Chevy two-door Bel Air sedan.
I owned the car for about 3.5, 4 years, but it took about 2 years to build it. It's just a hobby. We do it for fun. Just, you know, I like cars. I'm a car guy. I've been in the car business since I was a kid, so it's just kind of what I do. 5.25 horse LS2 block with LS3 heads, Tremec T56 transmission. We're trying to get into SEMA, so you know, we're trying to keep it off the street a little bit, but it does have a couple 200-300 miles on it, just trying to work the bugs out and stuff. But yeah, it'll definitely go. You know, I didn't decide to come down here until last Friday, so you know, we found out my son wasn't playing baseball this weekend, so decided to come down last Friday, and on the way down here, just so happened to get a room. It all worked out, and here we are. Didn't know what to expect. You know, I really didn't expect to see. I didn't expect it to be this kind of a show, this big. You know, you always hear about it, you know, and that it's huge and a lot of cars, but being here, it's night and day difference. And we sure didn't come to win anything. You know, it's like you said, it's just something fun for us to do, and it's just icing on the cake.
That's all we have time for from the Tri-5 Nationals in Bowling Green, Kentucky, where people came out to see some drag racing and to ooh and ah over some mighty fine Chevys.